Welcome everyone. We're absolutely thrilled to have you here today. If you are using Business Central and finding financial operating reporting frustrating, then really you're not alone. Many businesses struggle with the limited reporting capabilities in Business Central. I mean, look, standard reporting is pretty good, but there's just so much more that people typically need. So today we're going to show you, how you can deal with those reporting capabilities. Talk a little bit about what they are. We're going to show you how to really then take that on and deliver kind of advanced reporting to turn data into a strategic advantage. So I'm Michael Davies, Director for Go-to-Market at Aries Global Software Group and Business Central Insights. I spent 15 years of my career in financial services, finance, in roles such as research, corporate strategy, and that's just really leveraging data to help people invest and to run their businesses better. More recently, I was at Snowflake, which is one of the largest data and AI firms in the world, largest software IPO of all time. And really, the success behind that firm was that we made it so easy for companies of all shapes and sizes, more easy than ever before, really, for them to do more with data, be more data-driven, with less skills, perhaps, than they might have needed in the past. So joining me today is Jack Munns. Hi, Jack.
Hi, I'm Jack. I'm a principal at Aries Group. So I've spent the last 5 years really working as an investor and advisor to businesses across a range of industries, leveraging financial data to evaluate new potential investments, but also to help those businesses identify and act on growth opportunities and cost efficiencies.
Awesome. Thanks, Jack. So look, why are we here today? As I mentioned, we're here to talk about some of the challenges with Business Central for reporting. But also, look, why is great reporting essential for running your business? What reporting do you really need to do it well? How easily can you get it? And actually, trust me, it is pretty easy if you have the right tools. And then also, more importantly, the value that it can bring. And look, that's why Jack's here today. I think we see regularly that organisations do a fairly standard level of reporting. And I found it really interesting working with Jack and the team at Aries, just that extra depth they go to in terms of analysis for investment, but also once post-investment, helping businesses run their operations much, much better. And so that's the interesting insight that I think we're going to particularly be able to give you today. But before we get into that, let's first talk about the challenges, many of which you will be familiar with here today. In general, what do we see across organisations, particularly in finance, but I think that then stems to every area of the business. So in a recent finance survey of finance professionals, we asked them about their main challenges, right? And they gave their top two. And I think what you can see from this survey results is that actually balancing the books at an end of an accounting cycle, it's clear that they're all feeling the pressure, the time pressure. And that when businesses right now, many of them are under the costs, over costs. They're all being told to streamline, do more with AI. So there's fewer people than ever before. So that's all good. But at the same time, we're also seeing more pressure and expectation from business leaders, the business in general, to obtain meaningful analysis and KPIs to help make critical decisions. And that's just growing. It's greater than ever before. And that's really because of the wider trend in the industry for all organisations to be more data-driven. There's an expectation from every person in a business now, particularly if they've come from other companies where they've seen some really advanced level reporting. They want that, they need it, they expect it in order to make their decisions. Now, ultimately, I think what we find in many organisations is that burden ends up falling on finance. I, in particular, am always bothering Jack and saying, Jack, have you got this data for this data for that? We need insights on the sales. What's happened with the monthly recurring revenue? Where are we at with churn? It's all coming to Jack. Jack gets quite annoyed, but in a very nice way. And then ultimately, we need that. And then even in larger organisations where there's a BI team, we have some data professionals within our organisation. It's not where it is right now or where it needs to be. BI teams aren't financially viable in every organisation for starters, but even if you have one, the BI team is overloaded. They've got a long list of things that 1 million people are asking them to do. So it's really hard to keep up with user demand. That BI backlog is ever present. And this has a massive impact on organisations, right? So, when reporting is an afterthought, businesses operate in the dark at the end of the day. And without that accurate real-time data and insights, leaders, anyone within the business really struggles to make decisions on anything other than gut instinct instead of facts. And this results in missed opportunities and very costly mistakes. And it's something that, many experiences of doing over the years, and I'm sure Jack shares that as well. We can't do our jobs without having the right data. Do them properly, I would say. So let's just briefly talk about why this is so difficult in Business Central. And I think that many of you will probably have seen little elements of this today. The standard reports in Business Central are good to some extent. It's not terrible, right? But I just think that there's some major issues with them. In particular, like the native tools, they often lack flexibility. There's specific needs that people have for their business. They might have certain fields that are specific for their company or for their industry role. Certain reports that are maybe needed in certain dimensions other than others. And it's just really hard to make those changes with the standard reports. Most P&L owners aren't data analysts themselves, yet they're kind of forced to kind of do this, right? To dig through the raw data, to understand the business due to this rigidity. We see so many Business Central users buried in spreadsheets. They're manually exporting the data to them to try and build these custom insights that they need or for their reporting requirements. And look, by the time they've done that, they typically have spent countless hours, if not days, adjusting them to suit their needs. So it's not real time, right? And the data is out of date and less valuable. Many of the customers that we've spoken to are, they by the time they get that data, it's 1-2 days later, and so therefore they can't make those kind of intraday decisions, perhaps around, restocking, urgently around delivery. There's all sorts of elements that are really massively impacted by this. So another key point here is that the standard reports are also not in the right format or visualization to tell the story needed to illustrate the why behind them. Something that I'm always being asked to do, and I know Jack is. We're being, looking for an insight, a pattern, and then we need to be able to kind of present that in a great way to management to sort of say, look, this is what we're seeing, and this is why we need this investment, or to make these, optimizations, or stop paying for this, and so on. And that's not always easily possible, right? So it's stopping people making those proactive decisions, proactively managing their business even, and giving them that convincing evidence to drive change in the business. Then also we're seeing that as data volumes grow in Business Central, the reports are more complex, you're asking more complex questions, and this can really slow down and strain performance. A lot of the legacy technologies reports out there, I'm not going to name names, but people will know who they are, the big players in this space. They, the way they operate, the way they query Business Central, every time someone runs a query, that causes a lot of problems with performance in the system. So that's a real bottleneck for a lot of organizations. And then compiling reports across multiple entities, maybe if you've got multiple Business Central environments, dealing with multiple currencies, and a lot of the organizations we deal with are dealing in multiple countries these days. So this can be really difficult, really time consuming to bring all that data together. Again, a lot of that's being done manually in Excel spreadsheets. And those are really brittle. They can break. There's always like a problem. My years of running, a lot of reporting out of spreadsheets, you come to something like 2 months later and realize that there was one cell that was broken and this figure's been wrong for ages, and someone suddenly noticed it, and it's embarrassing, and you can make like incorrect decisions off the back of it. So it's not a robust way of running your business, quite frankly. And then finally, it needs to be acknowledged that a lot of organizations are trying to solve this themselves already. They're chucking resources at it. They're putting people, technology at this problem, right? But usually, it requires people who know what they're doing, right? Experience with spreadsheets. And even though I was very experienced with spreadsheets and running my businesses out of it in finance, they broke. So again, doesn't matter how experienced you are, they're brittle. But the more robust way to do it is with BI tools, data warehouses. But those are expensive. From my time at Snowflake, the minimum commitment that you would need to hire a data professional, to have some data warehouse technology, you're talking 100+ grand, right? Really, for most organizations, to get someone good who knows what they're doing. And then you also need someone who knows what they're doing with BI tools as well. And so all of these things just make it very expensive. It creates a bottleneck within the organization. And it's expensive, right? So wouldn't it be far better to have a cheap, ready-made solution that would just be so easy to use, so easy that any business user, anybody in an organization could easily get the insights they need and quickly, like in minutes, right? So that's what we're going to kind of cover off today and show you how with Business Central Insights you could do that. So as well today, we're also going to cover off, what not only how you can solve these challenges and become more data driven, but show you what powerful insights you can actually get out of Business Central, in addition to those looked at by business leaders. And so Jack's just going to cover this off now. And I think what's kind of amazed Jack with Business Central Insights is just the incredible level of depth of insight that you can actually get from this product out of Business Central.
Completely agree. It's pretty remarkable, I will say. And as an investor, I think what my focus is, and what we'll kind of go into today is not just revenue growth, but also kind of how that growth is being achieved. So this is an amazing tool to really get to that next level of depth below some of the top line numbers. So really understanding kind of are customers staying, is cash flow optimized, are costs under control. So we'll go into some of those key financial levers and really how this helps give you the visibility you need to understand and manage those today. Brilliant. So again, we did this survey of financial professionals, and actually a recent survey found that 76% of, which is a very high number of CFOs, say that manual tasks are just absorbing way too much of their time. We see consistently in our own companies that I've helped manage as well, this really limits the finance team's time on delivering strategic insights. And just given the manual effort that they have to go through every month, every quarter, whatever it is, to just report on the basics, businesses are often overlooking a lot of the key indicators like churn trends or working capital turnover that are really critical to long-term company health and helping to drive that performance in the long run. So advanced reporting like Business Central Insights enables really gives financial teams and investors like myself the quick, accurate visibility that you need to make better decisions, identify opportunities, and avoid costly errors. Here we can see some of the key reports that I focus on when evaluating new investments and helping identify growth and cost-saving opportunities for the companies that I manage. These primarily deal with the P&L and kind of the essential CFO KPIs and metrics, which are very helpfully brought together by Business Central Insights, and the balance sheet cube as well. And then on the sales side, the sales cube and some of the churn reporting as well, which is, I think, really important. In my career, compiling and manipulating this information has been a really significant and frankly, highly manual part of my job historically. But with this advanced reporting, the information needed to make quick and impactful decisions is immediately available and ready at the click of a button, as we will show shortly.
Yeah, I can't underline that enough. Like, I think talking from my own experience, when I've got people saying to me, "Oh, what are the figures this month? Like, how many meetings have we booked? How much pipeline have been generated? How many of those have closed?" The process typically to go and get that across, one company, let alone multiple companies, it takes so much of my time up. Yeah. And so actually, I've just been amazed with Business Central Insights, just how that, you can literally just grab this within a couple of clicks, right? And it's really, really impressive. So, I mean, that's really what we want to talk to you about today. Look, we're not here to bore you to death with this platform in terms of, what it is and what it does. It does a lot. We're not going to show you even a fraction of the 400 out-of-the-box reports that Business Central Insights has. But I hope that it just gives you a really good flavour. You can just see how powerful it is. And then, obviously, if you want to have another conversation with us about how we can make this super relevant for your company, your reporting needs, we'd love to do that. But hopefully this gives you a bit of a flavour. Jack is going to dive into a bit of a demo now and just show you some of the unique insights that he can get from this platform. So Jack, could you walk us through, a little demo of this platform, and just, I think really interesting to hear your take, stories. I really like some of the things we've talked about in the past, where you're kind of sharing some of the things that you've learned from your years of experience in doing this, and some of the value that can be delivered from having, great data-driven, capabilities.
Yeah, for sure. Let's flip across to the demo. So, what we can see here, this is one of a few areas actually that Business Central Insights covers, but we're diving first into the finance insights area of Business Central Insights. That's the area that I sort of focus in my time as an investor, but I think is also really important as a finance team member, or frankly any business owner and business leader, to really understand and get to a level of additional depth in your financial information. So we can see.
All I was going to say, actually, just sorry to interrupt you, Jack, was that as well as finance, and we're going to cover off the sales reports today, but you've got cash flow, accounts receivable, accounts payable, you've got manufacturing, jobs, services, CRM. So there's about 11 different areas of reports. All of those you can purchase separately through the Microsoft App Store. So you don't have to take everything. You can just get what you need. But yeah, sorry to interrupt, Jack. Please go ahead.
No, great point. So I think that the finance insights, as I was saying, is pretty comprehensive. There are obviously a lot of other deep dive areas as well. In this in particular, what this really covers, as you can see, is sort of your general overview of the general ledger and sort of core finance capabilities, the balance sheet, and we'll go into some of that in detail in a moment as well. Your core income statement, and that's really where I always start, and we'll dive in there first. But then also some of these key financial ratios that really give you that extra level of detail and granularity on the business, really helpful to be able to track. So if we start here on the P&L statement, what I think is really incredible about this view is that you can really easily track your variance versus your previous year and actually versus budget in a super visual way. You can set up, you can see here, there's arrows and sort of the actual figures against the side for how you're comparing to your budget year to date. But you can also actually very easily set up alerts so that you could give yourself a notification if you were tracking better or worse than budget. And that just gives you a much more immediate ability to react quickly to changes in the business that maybe aren't as visible as they would otherwise be for you. I should note as well, we're currently showing the total financial year versus the previous financial year, but you can actually look at this on a monthly basis. You can even drill into individual regions or segments of your business itself, and you can also look at the different time horizons that are relevant to your business. So it's super flexible, and frankly, I wish that we had this visibility for managing our portfolio here at Aries. We don't have all of our businesses on Business Central, so we can't use this for all of them. But it's extremely useful to track the business's performance and make sure that they're tracking as we would expect. In my career previously, I used this visibility at a e-commerce company that I was helping manage that actually had an issue with reining in their advertising spending, which exploded month on month due to a change in Google's search algorithm. We didn't have that well monitored at the time. We didn't have this visibility, unfortunately. And we actually had to have an emergency board meeting months after that spend had started increasing to drastically change how we were doing our advertising and redirect our focus to other marketing channels. If we had had this visibility in the moment and been able to actually track it on a daily, weekly, monthly basis like this enables, we could have saved, frankly, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and would have been much more able to actually redirect that spending to areas that would have helped drive the growth for the business.
Wow.
So this was sorely missed.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, like, with the alerts, you don't even really need to track it, right? I mean, in that sense of, like, you literally get an alert to tell you there's a problem. I mean, amazing, right?
Correct.
So.
It would have stopped the problem almost before it happened, which would have been super helpful, but unfortunately not what we had available at the time. This is a pretty unique tool. Brilliant. So that's really, I think, a really important part of the initial view that I look at any business and frankly how you help manage these businesses. But I think another element that I would really emphasize in what this helps give visibility over is actually these essential CFO KPIs and metrics. Not every business has the sophistication of a finance function or the amount of resources to be able to produce this sort of visibility, especially the smaller firms. But this is what kind of the best CFOs in the business are looking at to help manage their business on a weekly, monthly basis. And it's really critical to understanding the financial health of the business. So what we have here is quite a large range of metrics, which is amazing and gives you amazing visibility. So you can see on the left-hand side a number of different areas that I think are quite relevant to managing a business. So there's the cash conversion cycle, which really gives you good visibility over the amount of cash that you're using in the business and how effectively that's being deployed. You can see here as well, you can actually split the cash conversion cycle. So how many days that you've got of inventory, how many days of your expenses that you've got outstanding, by a lot of different areas that can give you that extra level of granularity. So you can see it over time on the right-hand side. You can see it by area of your business on the left-hand side. You can even see by the relevant industries that your company is actually selling to. So you can really drill down and understand where cash issues may be arising and help stem those issues as quickly as possible. But it also enables you to identify opportunities for improvements. So we used, actually, for a fashion business, in my experience, we had to understand why the business was EBITDA profitable, so their kind of P&L earnings were quite good, but they were losing cash each year. We were looking at buying the business, and this was a core question for us. It turned out that they had very large inventory requirements, actually in only one of their geographies. So it was quite hard to see without getting this level of visibility. And they had very poor payment terms with a number of their suppliers. So they had to pay their suppliers basically immediately, but a lot of their customers were using buy now, pay later and other schemes to pay later. And they were constantly needing to grow their inventory in order to keep the sales growing. This was a huge issue for us, actually. We managed to track down the exact area of the country in Germany where they had built up a huge amount of inventory and they had these unusual payment terms. And this was actually the core reason for us to not invest in the business. We were really worried that was unsustainable. And really kind of your cash flow conversion can be a really core part of ensuring that your business is growing in a healthy way, in a sustainable way in the long run. And this visibility that you can see, again, with all of the deep dives and drop downs that you need to really drill into the why, as Michael was describing earlier, is critical to uncovering those opportunities in your business and also helping to avoid mistakes that you might be making in your cash flow.
I think that drill down feature is really awesome as well, because I mean, I think if you could just quickly show that, Jack, like you can really just go into the detail behind these numbers, right? Yeah. So you can drill through. So actually you can really track back to the underlying transactions or whatever it is, but in the background that's driving these things. For sure. And I think, what's also quite important about all of these different reports is that they're customizable. You can tweak columns, you can change how what information is in there. You can save that view. So it's just really easy for anyone to go in and I'm not someone who works in accounting or anything like that, but I can go in, I can make changes. It's all very intuitive. If I want to filter by different route times, if I want to look month on month, week on week, year on year, or one period versus another, these are all really easy to do. Or you could filter out certain transactions in the additional filter on the right. Yeah. So there's just so much customization and that can be done here with just a few clicks, right? So it's super powerful, and really any business person is able to kind of do this without having to wait a week for some poor guy in finance or wherever is doing all this stuff now to deliver the results. And in particular, like if you're going out to consultants, it can be very expensive and still take time, right? So I think what Jack's showing here is like it's just so easy as you can see, right?
Yeah, it is so much more straightforward than the normally highly manual processes that we get, that I've gone through at very large companies to try and get to this level of visibility. Brilliant. And the last area that in the finance insights that I think is actually super valuable is the balance sheet cube. So this, I will say, is a view that I have never seen anywhere else, and I have never seen replicated even at the largest financial firms, largest companies that have very large finance functions. This is a level of granularity, and it speaks to the ability to kind of drill through, as Michael was describing in this platform, that just gives you an ability to get a handle on your business that is very, very hard to replicate without this sort of functionality. So what this balance sheet cube enables is actually seeing your outstanding, particularly accounts payable and receivable, in the first case by your suppliers. And so that's what we can And the second case by your vendors. So here, so your customers rather. So here we can see the accounts receivable split by all of the customers of this business. And what that really enables you to do is understand very, very quickly and easily where your large opportunities are for improving your cash flows on your payment terms with each of your customers and vendors. It also gives you a great idea of the risk associated or the opportunities to grow your business with those customers or potentially negotiate lower prices or whatever it might be, strategic partnerships with your vendors. So you can see here, for example, the active cycling customer has quite a large accounts receivable at the moment. And again, we can drill through to all of the entries that sit behind that. We can see every single invoice. We can see, are they getting later, for example, on their payment terms? Is there an issue with the customer that we should be flagging or understanding better? That doesn't appear to be loading, but that's okay. But you have all that visibility there. And the other thing, as I say, this is then replicated on the other side on all of your vendors. So you can see again all of the various payment terms and all of the accounts payable associated with those vendors. And again, you can see, are they taking longer to? Are we able to extend our payment terms and take longer to pay them? Are they getting more challenging and trying to negotiate worse terms for us? And this is a really big part of making sure that the businesses stay profitable and healthy. I helped a portfolio company in the retail space negotiate better terms with suppliers based on a frankly much worse version of this visibility that took a very long time for me to build, but that is the issue with not having this level of visibility that easily.
Well, how long did it take, Jack? Are we talking like weeks? I mean...
Weeks. It was over a month in the end to get to accumulate the level of information, check it all, make sure that we were correct because we were using it to negotiate pretty significant improvements in payment terms with our suppliers. So we have to get that right and make sure that the opportunity is what we expect it to be. So that was I'd say 3 or 4 weeks to build the initial view. And pretty painful weeks, and then another few weeks just to check and make sure it was all correct. So this is accurate, quick. You can see the value right there.
Yeah.
And it was super valuable once we had that visibility and what you can do with this sort of visibility with much less pain and sort of manual effort was actually negotiate such a change in the payment terms that the net working capital went from being a cash drag that the business had to keep investing into every month to a source of cash as the company grew. We managed to ensure that the company was paying their suppliers after they were getting money from their customers, which was incredible. We unlocked an extra 100,000 euros a year that they could just put straight back into sales and marketing and accelerate their growth. So it was a painful exercise, but well worth it for us, of course. But this makes it so much easier to do that and much more sort of worthwhile then to go after smaller opportunities, which you maybe wouldn't bother with if you had a big manual exercise to do it.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I think in all my years of like working in this space and at Snowflake in particular, speaking to companies that just by being able to see what's going on in their business in a different way, getting that insight, they've been able to transform their business. Like you see companies going from maybe not making much money to being very profitable as a result of having that unique insight that's allowed them to change, make decisions, adapt their business model. It's incredible what you can do if you have these tools, right? So yeah, awesome, great story.
For sure. And a real competitive differentiator, to be honest. I mean, having that unlock was huge for them. Brilliant. So that covers sort of where I really focus in and find the kind of key value, I think, on the finance insights. But I'd love to flip to some of the sales insights that this unlocks as well. This is a separate sort of report within Business Central Insights. And what this really does, if I go to the full menu here of what's available.
And I noticed for us sales lot, you have to add in the pretty colours as well, which is always nice.
Visuals are always important to help simplify.
We go bored otherwise, yeah.
Exactly. Brilliant. So this again, I mean, you can see the number of reports and the number of amazing detail that you can get here. This is a very comprehensive view of your company's sales, and we've talked a lot about kind of cash flow optimization and profitability. But ultimately, we want these businesses to be growing and growing sustainably and in a healthy way. And you can't underestimate the value of sales in that, and making sure that that's working as smoothly and efficiently as possible.
Yeah, we like to say we're the most important part of the business, of course.
Of course.
All I would say, there's a lot of reports here, right? So there's so much, and you can spend a long time exploring this. What I would say is that these views here, these reports are customizable.
Yes.
So I mean, there's role-based access control with Business Central Insights, which is fairly unique in this space. So not only can you have role-based control over what data is seen, because there's row-level security, but you can also look at changing this depending on role. Less reports are visible. You can mark them,
Yes.
for kind of key ones. So I'm aware that there's a lot to take on in the screen here, but this is customizable, and it's very easy to kind of highlight and make key reports, there for the depending on the role.
For sure, yeah. You can choose your favorite ones and make sure those are nice and visible in front and center, and that will make it even easier to engage with all of this. So I won't go through most of these, but obviously there are a large number that are quite useful, particularly if you have a manufacturing or distribution business. Some of these are more relevant to you, but I will focus mostly on the sort of more general sales reporting that is relevant for any business in my experience. So really starting with, I think, one of the key elements of managing a good sales process and managing a good sales team is understanding sales by salesperson fundamentally. You can really drill down, as with all of Business Central Insights, into a huge amount of detail. One thing that I think is quite cool is you can see by all of your salespeople actually the individual sales that they are responsible for and the accounts that they manage. Not only can you see the sales in revenue terms, but you can actually see the adjusted profitability of those contracts. So I think that's a really interesting way also to track your real impact of those contracts on your bottom line and how that really affects your business. You can see, maybe a salesperson is really generating a lot of top line sales, but they're offering them at very large discounts, has an impact on profitability, might be something to look into. The core kind of benefit of this view, in my view, is really to be able to track the performance of your salespeople and evaluate the opportunity ultimately for improvements. You can benchmark the performance across your whole company. Obviously, you can see who are really strong performers, who might need to be given extra compensation or just made more visible within the company, but also opportunities for other people, say, Hassan here, to learn from Helena with the much more impressive sort of sales performance that Helena is demonstrating here. I think there's a real opportunity, particularly if your company is spread out across multiple geographies, to actually learn from one another and make sure that best practice sharing is happening. And I think the other element that I would really say is that you can actually see a lot of detail around where different geographies are performing better than others. So this gives you a great indication of the opportunity maybe to reallocate resources from one to another, retarget your sales efforts, and actually improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the whole sales org. So at a smaller software company that I helped with, we actually used, again, after quite a lot of work to produce the visibility needed, use this sort of reporting to help redefine our sales territories. So we allocated more sales reps to the US and Canada, which were large growth opportunities for the business, and where the sales reps were overwhelmed with the opportunity. So we could see they had super high sales numbers, but they were getting quite burnt out, and were sort of consistently exceeding targets, but that's not necessarily sustainable. And we moved sales reps out of the UK, where the market was a bit quieter, which actually enabled us to retain 100% of our staff. They were all pretty keen, the salespeople in the UK, to move to a territory where there was a big opportunity. We improved sales rep satisfaction overall, as you can imagine. A bit frustrating for some of the team members to be finding it hard, just given the overall environment to sell their product. So they were super happy to move to somewhere a bit more exciting. And the overall impact was actually that we increased sales by 15% without reinvesting anything in growing the sales team, which was super exciting. And this just unlocks that without needing to go through the months, weeks, whatever it might be of work to have that visibility. But also gives you a visibility on a much more regular basis and much more immediate basis to be able to make decisions faster.
Yeah, and the thing I love in particular about this is again that ability to drill down. I mean, you can go through and see like what's underlying it in terms of the the contracts, the sales themselves, and that for me, in my experience of managing sales, is really trying to understand like why is someone overperforming,
Yes.
why is someone underperforming. Often I've seen great salespeople just be on the wrong patch, and it's nothing to do with their ability. They're doing all the right things. They just don't have the right territory. And other people who are doing really well actually, have they just been lucky? Have they, is actually most of their sales being made up by, one or two big deals? And look, in smaller teams, that's really easy to kind of understand. But bigger teams with multiple layers of management, it's just impossible, right? So how can you go in and make real decisions about, your workforce, what they should be focused on, who's good, who's bad, without having that ability to just drill down into the data and having it all in one great, easy to see dashboard like this.
Completely agree. And again, this is super customizable, so you can change your filters. You can change how the dashboard is displayed. Some of these additional graphs, for example, you might want to have more of a visibility by country or by different customers. So that is an amazing way to make this as usable and exciting for you as possible. One more final report that I find extremely valuable in all of this. It's a bit of a different view, actually, in some ways. The sales reporting is often very focused on sort of bringing in new customers at the end, into the top of the funnel. But I think an area that is often quite hard to track, frankly, and under-tracked by a lot of companies, just because it's difficult to get that visibility, is actually the lost customers. If your company is bringing in a large number of customers every year, every month, but you have an even larger number going out, it's extremely hard to sustain that business. And you just end up having to force the salespeople to push harder and harder and harder if you're not able to diagnose the challenge and sort of stem those losses. So here we can see the customers that have been lost over time, and by region and by salesperson who is responsible for that account. Again, you can use this to evaluate individual account executives, but ultimately, this gives you the visibility around kind of where the customers are churning, if there are opportunities to improve individual sales reps, relationships with their customers, and really kind of stem that tide before it becomes a challenge for the business overall. We really appreciate this visibility here as investors, because ultimately, if you can go in and buy a business and immediately improve their churn, you can actually buy businesses really that aren't attractive to other investors and just don't have that muscle of coming in and really helping improve that business that quickly. It's often, I find, an easier way to have an immediate impact on the business is to have that visibility and granularity on which customers are churning and start improving those immediately. Sales can be, I think, probably more impactful in the long run, but has a bit of a time to develop. And in particular, I've found that in the past, really targeted win-back campaigns are actually really, really valuable to reducing churn quickly. And really, without this visibility, very hard to achieve that you get the right targeting and the right message for your customers. So at a software portfolio company that I've worked with previously, we created a targeted email campaign led by the account executives that were responsible for each of the customers. Obviously, they, once they are aware that we have that visibility and feel very responsible for that, they were very keen to try and get back those customers as a much easier way. Those customers had wanted the software in the past, were excited by the product, but for whatever reason or another, maybe a too large a price increase, whatever it might have been, they had decided to switch that off. We achieved a very significant 30% win back on those lost customers. It was a much easier sale and process for many of these salespeople than trying to find new targets. And it was a really, really effective way, actually, to sort of stem the tide at the company that we were at and make sure that we were growing in a really healthy and sustainable way.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think in particular one Business Central Insights customer I spoke to before they brought on Business Central Insights, they were actually seeing quite high churn and falling sales in one particular area. Australia actually as well, interestingly.
There you go.
What they realised was that they'd seen an increase in delivery costs in that region, and that was just meaning that they were just no longer like price competitive versus competitors. So it was just something that took so long for them to work out, and now with Business Central Insights, they just have that data. In fact, they can even track it intraday. Like it's it's so easy for them just now because as Business Central updates, they get the using our connector, the data is pulled into their Power BI reports. So these Business Central Insights Power BI reports. So 8 times a day they have it set up. You could have more, and so they're getting that intraday tracking of deliveries of sales. They can just spot problems as and when they happen, right? So it's just transformative really for them.
Completely agree. And again, this is a super customizable thing. I think one thing to particularly note in this dashboard is actually you can define what you count as churn. So businesses think about this very differently. And the number of days since a customer last invoiced is very variable. And this is actually something that you can really have a think about and have a play around to get the best visibility of what you think of as churn and what is the really relevant people to go and target with a win-back campaign, for example, so that you can drive the most value for your business.
Awesome.
Brilliant. I think that just about does it for us. So very glad that I was able to share some of the reporting, frankly, that I wish I'd had a lot more of in my career so far, and I'm very excited to use a lot more going forward. Thank
you, Jack. That was awesome. Really insightful. So amazing to see what you can actually do with the right reporting. Amazing. So look, in summary, right, I think most customers will find standard Business Central reports are just not good enough, right? For some people they're fine, but for many they're not quite, doing everything they need. And that's especially we find certain businesses with unique fields, unique data, they can't easily incorporate that. They certain roles within their business, certain sectors, they just can't get what they need, and that's just problematic because they can't then answer the important business questions that they have, or their users have. And I think the real challenge is just to get started using Business Central properly and setting up the reports they need. They have to involve IT or a consultant, right? And that can take many months, if not years. To do, and quite often, we see those data projects fail. You need a lot of experience because you need the Business Central experience, you need the data experience, you need the BI experience, and getting all that together to work just fails, right? And I think the other thing is as well, most people need that kind of specialist resources, technology as well. So really the difference here with Business Central Insights, these are Power BI reports, ready-made, available through the Microsoft App Store for Business Central. So it's like 400 plus reports in total, like a lot, ready-made in areas like finance, cash flow, sales, inventory, accounts receivable, accounts payable, services, job CRM, manufacturing. And look, we're launching more reports all the time. Our customers are kind of saying to us, oh, we need this, we need that. We're just adding them in, right, as people need them. And the beauty of all of this, right, is that you don't need, some expensive data guru. You don't need a data warehouse, which, it's going to cost you tens, if not even hundreds of thousands for large organizations. And look, you don't need consultants. I mean, not to say that you won't want to use them for certain things, but to come and set up this platform, get it running on your data is really easy. You don't need a consultant for that, right? So the actual barriers to entry for using this are so low. And look, when you've got this up and running, you can have all your data, including legacy ERP platforms that you might have. You can have it running on all your companies, consolidated, all of your environments as well. So we have customers with, multiple environments, 10, 15 environments. I think one of our largest customers has. You can bring that all together, consolidated across all of those environments, all of those companies, and also actually in multiple currencies. So it doesn't matter if you've got businesses running in each of those, you can bring those together with so little work, right? I speak to loads of people who are doing this in spreadsheets currently, and there's people doing month-end reporting where they've got 2-3 people spending a week trying to do all this stuff, right? End of quarter, end of year, even more so. That goes away, so that your people can really spend time just building custom insights or answering questions, right? Providing that value-add analysis, and not spending time on just fiddling around with spreadsheets. And more than that, not just your specialists, right? You can bring all your users to this. So it's just so easy that even non-technical business users can quickly make changes, get the insights they need to make decisions without anything more than 30 minutes of training, right, to familiarize themselves on the reports. So, poll time. Okay, so look, if you want to take control of your financial reporting, the next step is really simple. If you want to join other successful businesses, the hundreds of customers that we have at Business Central Insights that have turned Business Central into a powerful decision-making tool, the sort of thing that Jack wishes he had every day with all of his portfolio companies.
Yes.
But in just 30 minutes, we can not only get a good understanding of your reporting needs, and I think that's really important. Like, we are not going to just shove something down your throat. We take the time to understand what it is that you really want to do, what you really need. Lots of people think that they're going to need to go and spend lots of time with consultants. It's going to be a really expensive, really big project. It's just not. The amount of time that people spend kind of like wondering whether they should do this or not, because they think it's going to be a really big project, it just isn't. It's so quick. So we're going to be able to quickly kind of show you like how you can get what you want for your specific reporting needs, how to kind of customize them as well if you need to, so that you can just like get it up and running on your data. And that's really quick to do. So look, just quick poll, right? We just want to understand, like, would you benefit from a deep dive into, Business Central and Power BI reporting, with an expert? It isn't a salesperson. It's going to be someone who really just gets it. And they're going to, go into it and show you how to do it with the Business Central reports that are most relevant for you and your team. So just quick poll, yes or no, relevant, not relevant, just really good to get an indication. And I can see like some people have already gone, brilliant. So just give it like 10 to 20 seconds just to let all the attendees go through an answer. That would be awesome. Okay, yeah, so still coming in, couple more. Okay. Yeah, that was good. Right, yeah, so look, not really surprising, right? Most people want that. So that's great. We will be reaching out to everyone post this anyway. We'll be sharing like a recording of the webinar, so you can share it internally within your organization, which I think is really useful, because what we typically find is that there's so many people in an organization that's using Business Central that would want to use these reports across finance, operations, and so on as well. So we'll be giving that recording. We'll be reaching out to people that kind of like ticked yes on this poll, and yeah, we'll be sharing a link so you can book time when suits you, right, with an expert in this area. So before we go, let's just do a quick Q&A, because I see we've had some questions come through. We've covered a lot today, right? But what are the challenges, in standard reporting and so on that people are looking at? We've covered that. We've shown like how you can use this advanced reporting to kind of unlock growth and look for key kind of insights that can really maybe transform your business. But look, for me, the key takeaway from this, and it has been from my entire career, and I know Jack feels the same, is like better insights just lead to better decisions. And what do those better decisions actually translate into? They translate into more revenue, more profit, less costs, happier people who are not spending their lives playing around with spreadsheets and realizing 2 weeks afterwards that they shouldn't have been doing something, or there was a big error in that report, and it's been quite embarrassing, right? And that's happened to me in my career a number of times. So having these kind of tools now is just something I wish I'd always had at all times in my career, and I know Jack feels the same on this.
Sure. Yeah.
So a couple of questions coming through. Jack, do you want to just ping those through, because I can't quite see on my screen?
Yeah, sure. So I think the first question that we got through actually, how long does it take to set up?
The apps, yeah. Really quick. So just like 15 minutes to 30 minutes, depends on what app, right? So there's two stages to it. You need to download the Business Central Insights Connector app. So that's the app that's going to connect your Power BI to your Business Central. So that is relatively quick to set up. A couple of bits of configuration that you'll need to do. We can walk you all through that. By the way, it's relatively easy. There's loads of videos and instructions how to do it. But if you have any problems or anything like that, you can just book a call with us and we'll walk you through it. So there's the connector, and then there's a specific report or reports that you want. So whether it's sales, whether it's inventory, and so on. The finance app takes a little bit longer to set up because you'll need to set up your GL account categories. Again, really straightforward to do, but maybe that takes another 15 minutes if you're kind of ready to go and you've got the right people involved. So like 30 minutes, we can have this up and running on your data, so you're getting immediate insight. Some people want to spend like a month or 2 months evaluating this product. I really don't get it because it's so cheap. And it's so quick to set up and get running. You might as well set it up. You can immediately see the value, and off you go. Right. The only thing that takes a little bit longer if you have a on-premise version of Business Central, that you'll need to involve your partner. You'll need to ask them to do a few bits and pieces, get you your kind of your license code. I think it's called. I'm forgetting right now, but that might take a couple of hours or so to do, and you need to involve your partner. They shouldn't charge you for it. It is a really quick and easy thing to do.
Remarkably quick. That's awesome. I think you briefly touched on the next question, but obviously some excitement about the product. People have asked, how much does it cost?
Well, it's kind of laughably cheap, really. To be honest with you, I think from my days at Snowflake, when the minimum transaction size was like tens of thousands. So it depends on the report and it depends on the number of users. But the model's pretty simple at the moment, actually. So there's standard, which is up to 10 Power BI users included. And then there's premium, which is unlimited above 10. So you're just going to pick, if your organization got 10 Power BI users or less or more, that's standard or premium. And then the reports vary from like 150, sort of for the reports, 100, 150. And then we've got these bundles going that are sort of like 200, 300 a month, right? So super, super cheap per month. For these reports, depending on what your needs are, like you compare that to the cost of a consultant, who might charge that for an hour or a couple of hours, right? To do nothing other than just ask you, what reports you actually want built. Then to go on and then build those could take many, many more days, months onwards. So like really the cost that we see of this versus, consultants or data warehouses and data professionals is just a fraction. So it makes it super accessible for smaller, medium enterprises as well as larger organizations. We've got plenty of customers who are, 10 people in size, and we've got customers that are thousands of employees. So it really does serve the needs of all of that, and the cost really enables that.
Yeah, brilliant. Another question that's come in is actually, what is the minimum contract term?
Right, yeah. So most customers, just because it's really easy to do, sign up to an annual contract, but we have monthly rolling contracts as well. You can purchase by credit card if you want to, right? A lot of people don't want to do that. They just want to do a simple invoice once a year. We can do that, right? So it just depends on what you prefer.
Great. Another question we've had a couple of times is actually kind of where is the data stored, and do you centrally do we have the access to the company's data?
No. So the data is basically pulled from Business Central via the connector into your Power BI. So we are data blind. We don't have access to your data. It's all secured by you. And the great thing is actually with Business Central Insights, we have enterprise grade tools around role-based access control, role-level security. So you have real control versus many of our competitive products to secure your data and to keep it safe, and to really govern who has access to what. Which is many people don't, right? So that's super important and something we've made sure we've set up properly, because as I said, we've got large enterprise customers who are using this product already, and they need this. Their infosec team wouldn't let them use Business Central Insights if that wasn't there.
Makes a lot of sense. We've had a few people who are obviously thinking about how they would use it pretty broadly in their organization. They've asked, is there any limit in the number of reports or users on BCI?
No, I mean, I don't think we've ever had a customer who struggled with performance issues or anything like that. There's a few ways around it depending upon the Power BI license you have, but ultimately we've got very large customers dealing with this. We've used Microsoft's API connector. This is the way that Microsoft recommends that you connect to Business Central. So it's far more performant than how some of our competitors work. And ultimately, this can handle a vast amounts of data. So that's not really a problem. There are a few little things we can do to help optimize if that ever comes up, but it just really doesn't. We quite often have meetings with people where they go, yeah, we're really nervous about that, and it's never a problem. We've spent a lot of time building this, so it's super optimized and it can work with large amounts of data.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
I think we might be at time now, actually. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, look, we'll make a note of any other questions that are in the chat, and then we'll reach out to people about those separately for sure. So, look, just thank you once again for joining us today. We'll be sending out a link to this webinar so you can share it with any of your colleagues that might be interested. Anyone that wants to book a meeting with us, their colleagues, and so on, you'll get details to be able to do that. And look, please don't hesitate to email us if you have any more questions. If you don't want to meet, you just a couple of questions, no problem. Check out our apps on the Microsoft App Store. Just search, they're under eNotion, which is the parent company, if you like, that owns the Business Central Insights product. And you'll find us really easily on the apps. In fact, actually, if you just type in Business Central, you'll see our apps come up top. We've got some of the highest ratings, some of the most popular apps on the app source out of thousands of apps. So really easy to find. And if you do want to have some dedicated time with a Power BI and Business Central reporting expert can help with your specific needs, then let us know. We'll be glad to book that. Thanks again, and thank you to Jack as well. It's been a great session.
Pleasure.